Okay, we're about to start. Video, please.
At COP28 in December 2023, all countries pledged to triple renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency progress by 2030. These ambitious commitments will help keep us on track with the Paris Agreement goals. Amidst the challenges of climate change and the rapidly changing global energy landscape, the Asia Clean Energy Forum, or ACEF, in its 19th year, remains a crucial regional platform for clean energy practitioners and leaders to collaborate, share knowledge and experiences, and commit to urgent action. This week, the Asian Development Bank and its partners, governments, private sector, NGOs, and academia, as well as upcoming energy leaders, will unite at ACEF under the theme Accelerating the Clean Energy Transition and Ensuring Energy Security and Affordability. Time for urgent action now. Asia and the Pacific are at the epicenter of global action on climate change. More than 50% of global greenhouse gas emissions are generated in this region today. And with continued economic growth and an increasing population, emissions will only increase in the future. Under the current trajectory, by 2025, for the first time in history, Asia will account for half of the world's electricity consumption. The experts at ACEF are experienced and knowledgeable of innovative clean energy solutions, and many are already implementing them. But the speed and scale of investment and implementation need to increase many-fold for any real progress during this decade. Investments must move from billions to trillions of dollars to deliver the clean energy transition in the region. Private sector investment will be key. Governments, private sector, academia, and civil society in developing countries must work together to develop innovative ways to transform their energy systems while ensuring energy security and affordability. Only the right mix of policies, regulations, incentives, and capacity building will foster greater private sector investment towards bankable clean energy projects and businesses. Collaboration is the key to success in creating an ecosystem of change. This is what ACEF is about. Governments and the private sector must jointly ensure a just energy transition, addressing socio-economic impacts and fostering inclusive, resilient livelihoods while providing electricity to 53 million people, which currently lack access, and transitioning 1.2 billion people from traditional biomass to clean cooking solutions across Asia and the Pacific. Over 50 sessions during ACEF Week will showcase innovative strategies and solutions to address the energy crisis, accelerate the energy transition, and ensure energy security and affordability for all. At the core of these sessions are the 4 thematic tracks. Participants are invited to explore strategies to prioritize renewable energy and accelerate investments in thematic track 1, tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030. Policies that increase public and private sector investments and create an enabling environment for energy efficiency will be the focus of thematic track 2, doubling progress in energy efficiency by 2030. The electricity grid is now becoming a major bottleneck, resulting in some renewable energy projects being delayed or canceled due to the inability to connect these projects. Upgrading and expanding electricity transmission and distribution grids to keep with the pace of renewable energy demand is the key topic of thematic track 3, delivering electricity transmission and distribution for the future. And in thematic track 4, financing new and innovative clean energy solutions in hard-to-abate sectors, innovative financing and technologies will be closely examined, from hydrogen to electrification to carbon capture, utilization and storage, or CCUS. to decarbonize the industrial sector. While there is an urgent need to accelerate the clean energy transition and tackle climate change, it is equally critical to leave no one behind. This year's Asia Clean Energy Forum seeks to inspire regional collaboration towards concrete and urgent action that is just and inclusive for all. The challenges are immense, yet ASEF is a testament to what we can achieve together in building a more prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and the Pacific.
Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, warm welcome to the Asian Development Bank and to the 19th Asia Clean Energy Forum, or ASEF. My name is David Morgado, and I'm honored to be your Master of Ceremony today. Since the first ASEF back in 2005, the forum has come a long way. Today, ASEF is ADB's flagship energy event, attracting more than 1,400 people from across the region and globally. This year, I've had the privilege of leading the organization of ASEF 2024 alongside more than 20 dedicated colleagues from across ADB, as well as with staff from several international agencies such as USAID, IEA, IRENA, UNESCAP, UNIDO, and many others. We have all worked hard to craft a comprehensive and engaging program for the next 4 days. The theme of this year's forum builds on the outcomes of COP28 and comprises of 3 pillars. The first pillar, accelerating the clean energy transition so that we can meet our climate goals. Pillar 2, ensuring energy security and affordability, a critical aspect for sustainable development. Pillar 3, urgent action now. With only 6 years left to bridge the gap, immediate action is imperative. For today's opening plenary, we will focus on the urgency, the time for action now, and how we can mobilize the trillions of dollars required for the clean energy transition in Asia and the Pacific. Part 1 of this plenary from 9 to 10:30, distinguished ministers and keynote speakers will share their insights on the opportunities and challenges of transitioning to clean energy solutions. Subsequently, our co-organizers, who are instrumental in making ASEF possible each year, will provide their introductory remarks and perspectives. After a short break, we will have part 2 of this opening plenary from 11 to 12:30. In part 2, we will hear from influential keynote speakers from the private sector. They will discuss their efforts to deliver and implement innovative technologies and financing in the region. The plenary will conclude with a high-level panel discussing how to mobilize greater private sector investment for clean energy. With this context in mind, it's my great pleasure to invite the President of the Asian Development Bank, Mr. Matsuo Asakawa, to deliver the welcome remarks. President Asakawa, the floor is yours.
Distinguished guests and colleagues, good morning and welcome to the 19th Asia Clean Energy Forum. As we are all aware, the impacts of climate change are not a distant threat, but a present reality. The past year was the hottest on record, and 2024, this year, continued to set new records. The threat to Asia and the Pacific are especially dire, with extreme heat, floods, and droughts growing in number and intensity. The imperative for our region is clear. We must end our reliance on fossil fuels, particularly coal, and aggressively pursue a transition to clean energy Our COP28 goals are ambitious yet critical: to triple our renewable energy capacity and double our energy efficiency by 2030, all while ensuring these transformations are just and inclusive for all. In response to our climate challenges, the Asian Development Bank has embraced its role as a climate bank for Asia and the Pacific. Our aim is to lead the way in mobilizing the finance and expertise required to accelerate the transformation to clean and efficient energy systems. The scale of financing required to fund the clean energy transition in this region is unprecedented. At least $1 trillion annually up to 2030. This far exceeds current funding levels. So, we must develop innovative solutions that mobilize unprecedented level of investment. To this end, ADB has implemented capital management reforms last year to unlock $100 billion in new funding capacity over the next decade, including for climate actions. Additionally, our launch of the IFCAP, which stands for Innovative Financing Facility for Climate in Asia and Pacific, is set to multiply our lending capacity through leverage, allowing us to crowd in substantially more resources from the private sector and other investors who share our commitment to climate action. And our energy transition mechanism, ETM, which is leveraging market-based approaches to retire coal-fired power plants and unlock new investments in sustainable renewable energy, has the potential to be one of the largest carbon reduction models in the world. While financial resources are crucial, they must be paired with comprehensive knowledge, expertise, and human resources. Furthermore, the substantial investment needed in energy efficiency and renewable energy have to be combined with robust improvement in our energy infrastructure, particularly in electricity transmission and distribution. This is necessary to ensure resilience, accessibility, and affordability for the millions of people in the region who are at risk of being left behind in the energy transition. Dear friends, this forum is a testament to our strong commitment to a clean energy transition across Asia and the Pacific. Among us today are government officials, private sector leaders, energy service providers, philanthropies, non-governmental organizations, and others focused on achieving a clean energy future. Together, we form a powerful coalition for change. While the challenges ahead of us are significant, so too are the opportunities for innovation and creativity in our response to the climate crisis. Today, let us commit to urgent action, ensuring that our collective efforts lead to a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable future for all. Thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you so much, President Asakawa, for your welcome remarks and for all your support as well for ADB here to leverage greater clean energy in the region. With that, we will now start the ministerial keynote speeches, and it's a real pleasure to welcome His Excellency Terje Asland, Minister of Energy and Norway, to deliver his perspective on Norway's energy transition, clean energy transition. Video, please. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to address you at the Asia Clean Energy Forum. Norway is a close partner with many countries in Asia, in businesses and energy. We share the opportunities. We also share the challenges. how to provide energy security to a growing world population, and how to do so in a sustainable manner while securing affordable energy to all, industrial investments and job creations. How to solve these tasks at hand. I do not have all the answers, but some things are clear. We, as politicians, must provide the framework to give direction, and Norway will play its part in the transition. As a stable provider of oil and gas produced with low emissions, still necessary because we need energy security, safe jobs, and affordable energy. On offshore wind, where Norway, together with the other North Sea countries, plan to establish 300 gigawatt offshore wind, this will give us many positive ripple effects. Safe green jobs is one thing, of course. The Norwegian government has high ambitions and a long-term commitment for the development of offshore wind. On CO2 storage, where CCS represents an important pathway to achieve climate neutrality, the goal of our Longship project, which is the largest climate project in Norwegian industry ever, is to build a viable value chain for carbon capture, transport and storage. And we are well on the way. It will start capturing and storing CO2 in 2025. The interest in developing CO2 storage projects on the Norwegian continental shelf is large. We are awarding new exploration licenses continuously. Norway will offer CO2 storage areas to Europe on commercial terms. And not least, on hydrogen, where Norway wants to contribute to a European market with low or zero emissions. We need hydrogen to achieve our common climate objectives, particularly in hard-to-abate sectors, where electrification is not an option. To achieve this, we must reduce costs, minimize energy losses, and explore new applications. Again, we will provide framework and direction. However, we must highlight the vital role of companies, many gathered at the Asia Clean Energy Forum. Companies who see opportunities when markets seek green and sustainable solutions. Companies who drive the energy transition forward and take position in global markets. So let me be clear. If we are to reach our goals, we need good policies, and we need the expertise, experience, and commitment of our industries. As we look to the future, we must build on that platform, continue to identify those common interests in energy, reducing emissions, and developing technology, and collaborate for a sustainable energy future. I wish you all a successful conference. You are most welcome and needed. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much for the Minister of Energy of Norway for giving insights into his plan of what they want to do in terms of the clean energy transition, particularly looking at alternative solutions, hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, and many others, of course, including energy efficiency. With that, we now move on to another country, which is also on the pathway for clean energy transition, Cambodia. And we're very honored and very fortunate to have here His Excellency Keo Rotanak, Minister of Energy and Mines and Energy from Cambodia, to share his experience and work that he's doing. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Thank you so much.
President Massa of the ADB, Minister Bassett from Nepal, Minister Aslan from Norway, distinguished participants. Thank you to the Asian Development Bank, USAID, and Korea Energy Agency for hosting. The time for urgent action is now. This has been said at many conferences, meetings, and initiatives inspiring action and inspiring change. Yet, I fear that the international community has been saying this for far too long. Despite efforts, the urgency remains. This is particularly true for emerging market and developing economies, where annual investment in clean energy must more than triple from $770 billion in 2022 to over $2 trillion per year by 2030 to meet rising energy demands and while aligning with the Paris Agreement. Of course, we need to make sure that systems evolve in a considered, timely, and ordered way. But the central point here is that they do change. We have seen a growing ambition and a global race for green investment. Countries are now recognizing that the clean energy transition is the new reality and that the time for urgent action really is now. The question remaining is how we work together to overcome barriers, including the hurdles of bankability and financial solutions, harnessing innovation, and driving the sustainable development our people and our planet urgently need. Today, I would like to briefly outline Cambodia's initiatives for advancing our clean energy transition and identify key areas for collaboration and with stakeholders to achieve our ambitious goals. The Cambodian government, led by our Prime Minister Somdait Mahabawa Thepparay Manet, aims to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. To make this a reality, we have first established strong policy and legislative frameworks. The second critical factor is to ensure funding, and the third factor is fostering stronger dialogue and partnerships. In terms of policy, energy efficiency is at the center of our efforts. It is our most cost-effective tool for achieving increased energy security, reducing costs, and creating a cleaner environment. What we cannot save, we must produce sustainably. Last year, renewable energy made up over 57% of Cambodia's installed capacity. We canceled plans for a 700 coal plant and are exploring the early retirement of smaller coal power plants. Our goal, as laid out in our recently amended Power Development Plan, is to increase renewable energy to at least 70% by 2030. To further our progress, we plan to integrate 5.4 gigawatt of solar and 550 megawatt of wind into our grid by 2030. Specifically, between 2025 and 2027, we will integrate 2.6 gigawatt of solar and a 2 gigawatt hour of battery storage system and 450 megawatt of wind power. From 2028 to 2030, we will incorporate an additional 2.8 gigawatt of solar and 100 megawatt of wind power hybridized with at least 1 gigawatt of pumped storage hydropower. We are modernizing our electrical systems, strengthening our grid infrastructure, and incorporating flexible solutions like mini or microgrids and smart technology. As we produce more electricity from renewable sources, we recognize the benefits of electrification. Targets have been set for electric vehicles, and we are developing a roadmap to incentivize EV uptake and roll out charging infrastructure. By upskilling and reskilling our workforce, we are strengthening our energy sector governance and ensuring a just transition with a focus on women and vulnerable groups. Cambodia also strongly support the ASEAN Power Grid, together with like-minded regional partners. We aim to build a resilient, efficient energy network to support our shift to renewables. With our policy framework in place, the second critical factor we must address is securing the necessary funding for these initiatives. Cambodia invested around $500 million in 2023 and plan to invest another $7 billion from 2024 to 2030 into variable renewable energy. Key aspects of our strategy to increase private sector support include simplifying permitting processes, aligning grid development with long-term energy planning, and standardizing power contracts with government guarantees. Since the cost of capital is higher for renewable projects in emerging economies, we need creative financial solutions. Cambodia is actively working on several fronts to address this. We are making renewable energy projects cost-effective through strategic partnerships, such as the ADB Energy Transition Sector Development Program. This initiative combines a $50 million policy-based loan with $23 million in project investments, using concessional resources and strategic planning to support renewable energy and efficiency, reducing capital costs and lowering the risk premium. Another key area is financing insurance, which provides protection against various project risks and thereby making renewable energy projects more attractive to investors. We need to evolve risk assessment models and leverage new data analytics so insurers can bridge the coverage gap and accelerate the shift towards sustainable energy solutions. Equally important is the timing for processing of financing interests. Efficient processing timelines are essential to keep projects on track and ensure timely implementation. Finally, environmental impact assessments are crucial for securing international financing, ensuring projects meet global standards and sustainability goals. However, EIAs can be very costly and cumbersome. We aim to streamline the process for renewable projects to make it more efficient and cost-effective without compromising effectiveness. By addressing these key elements, we are creating a robust and attractive investment environment that supports our clean energy transition. Additionally, we are focusing on market-based mechanisms like renewable energy auctions to mobilize low-cost financing and ensure equitable economic benefits. In 2022, phase one of Cambodia's 100-megawatt national solar park began operations, achieving a record low tariff of 3.8 cents per kilowatt hour through a competitive auction. This tariff, the lowest ever for a solar project in Southeast Asia at the time, highlights the cost-reducing power of competition. Supported by ADB, this project saw a state-owned electricity company provide land and transmission access, while the private sector supplied power generation capacity under a long-term agreement. In addition, we are currently collaborating with ADB on another bid for another 100-megawatt solar project with battery storage. And that brings me to a third priority: fostering stronger dialogue and partnerships. Cambodia is grateful for the many strong partnerships that provide us with access to relevant technical and financial resources to support our energy transition. We deeply appreciate the support from ADB and other multilateral institutions, and we welcome opportunities like this event to learn, share our progress, and build momentum. I will end as I began. The time for urgent action is now. We are at a tipping point. We have seen the growth of renewables and the acceleration of the energy transition. As policymakers, it is our duty to support this transition, to embrace the opportunities for new partnerships, and not to fear the geopolitical shifts it brings. We must seize this moment to turn our commitments into reality, our ambitions into achievements, and our partnership into powerful drivers of change. I would like to thank the organizer again for convening this important event, and I wish you very fruitful discussions. Together, we can ensure a brighter and greener future for all. So let us move forward with urgency, determination, and courage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Excellent speech and amazing to know all the great things that Cambodia is doing on many fronts on renewable energy particularly. And I'm sure all of us at ADB are very keen to continue to work with you and help Cambodia to achieve its carbon neutrality by 2050. With that, we conclude the ministerial keynote speeches, and now we will move to the welcome remarks by our co-organizers. ASEF would not be possible without our co-organizers, and we've had very strong support from the Korean Energy Agency and USAID very much from the beginning. And we would now like to welcome, first of all, our Vice President for Sectors and Themes from ADB, Fatima Yasmin, to deliver introductory remarks. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and a very warm welcome to the 19th Asia Clean Energy Forum. I would like to start my introductory remark of this opening plenary by thanking our distinguished speakers who have traveled from afar to join this forum. Our co-organizers, the Korea Energy Agency and the United States Agency for International Development, for facilitating this event. I also take this opportunity to commend the ADB staff who have worked tirelessly to make this highly impactful event possible. In the next 4 days, more than 1,000 participants from across the globe. We have from around 150 speakers in more than 50 topical sessions. This year, average global temperature have been extraordinarily high, including not in the Philippines, but also many of the countries of South Asia and Southeast Asia. The global heat wave highlights the need to take urgent action on climate change, to reduce carbon emissions and accelerate our transition to clean energy. You have already informed that this afternoon we will start with 4 thematic track sessions. This will be a great opportunity to compare notes and share your diverse knowledge and experiences. Your contributions will certainly help in designing the solutions we need to deliver the goal of the Paris Agreement on climate change. This year we have 4 thematic tracks which are closely linked with the outcome of COP28. These are tripling renewable energy capacity by 2030, doubling progress in energy efficiency by 2030, delivering electricity transmission and distribution for future, and financing new and innovative clean energy solutions in hard-to-abate sectors. Starting with the first thematic track, tripling renewable energy capacity is a must. Our region has made significant progress in investing in renewable energy capacity. 4 Asian countries, the People's Republic of China, Japan, India, and South Korea, are now among the world's top 10 countries with the largest solar power capacities. However, the region's energy demand is also rising due to the robust economic growth of the countries, thus reducing the region's high dependence on fossil fuels will not be an easy task. Thematic Track 2 will focus on largest untapped and cost-effective fuel resources, energy efficiency. There is a need to substantially increase public and private sector investments in energy efficiency. Countries in the region are starting to design and adopt energy efficiency policies, but enforcement at national and local levels remains a challenge. Thematic Track 3 will tackle another major challenge, the need to upgrade and expand our power grids to accommodate more renewable energy. This transformation requires as much investment as the move to renewable energy itself. Aside from financing, overcoming the bottleneck requires better planning and permitting. Finally, Thematic Track 4. It reminds us that we cannot forget the industrial sector, which is unlikely to decarbonize as fast as the power sector today. More resources and efforts are needed to support energy-intensive industries such as cement, iron, and steel to transition to high efficiency and cleaner energy solutions. ADB's solution team is tasked with helping our developing member countries in addressing these challenges and others on behalf of the de facto Climate Bank of the Asia and the Pacific. The low carbon energy transition is a major transformation that requires everyone's contribution and cooperation. We need clean energy experts and advocates like yourselves to raise our awareness, understanding, and collaboration to levels higher than ever before. Over the next 4 days, I believe you will unleash your energy and enthusiasm to share the insights and leverage the knowledge you have acquired. In this way, you will help accelerate the region's transition to clean and efficient energy and achieve our shared goal of energy security and affordability for everyone. To conclude, I wish you all an invigorating forum. I thank you for your participation. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Vice President Yasmina, for your introductory remarks and taking us through the Asia Clean Energy Forum track sessions, which will be starting from today, covering, as you mentioned, renewable energy, energy efficiency, transmission and distribution, and of course, industrial decarbonization. I'd now like to move on to our other co-organizer, Korean Energy Agency. They've been supporting Asia Clean Energy Forum for many years. They have been vital in providing inputs to the Asia Clean Energy Forum in terms of speakers, in terms of content, and we're delighted that they will be organizing tomorrow a session. So I do invite you to attend, but it's my pleasure to invite Mr. Bunam Shin, Executive Director of Korean Energy Agency, to deliver the introductory remarks. Thank you.
Good morning. 안녕하세요. Mr. Masatsugu Asakawa, President of Asia Development Bank, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Korean government and Korea Energy Agency, I thank you, Asian Development Bank, for co-organizing the 19th Asia Clean Energy Forum, organized under the theme of accelerating clean energy transition and ensuring energy security and affordability. Time for urgent action now. As my previous speakers said, we agreed to triple the installation of renewable energy capacity and double energy efficiency improvement by 2030. This is a major step forward, which will require considerable progress in global energy transition in the coming years. This means we have a big homework and challenges before us. The Asia-Pacific region is a pivotal in pursuing global commitment to energy transition. It's home of more than half of the world population. It accounts for the 45% of global energy supply, of which 83% comes from fossil fuels. While energy demand continues to grow in this region, many of the solutions to energy transition are being forged here, which will be critical to the success of global energy transition, I think. From solar farms in India to wind turbines in China and the innovative energy storage solutions in Japan and the Republic of Korea, our region is at the forefront of the clean energy technology. Asia becomes one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change due to the high population, economic structure, and the greenhouse gas emissions. According to the WMO, Asia is warmer faster than the global average. In 2022, due to the extreme drought, flood, and dust storms, more than 5,000 people lost their lives, and more than 50 million people were directly affected. And the estimated economic damage exceeded $36 billion in this region. This is why we are here for this week. Republic of Korea explores ways to contribute to the global energy transition. At the UN General Assembly last year, the president of ROK preached its leading role in promoting all available carbon-free energy, including renewable energy, nuclear power, and hydrogen, to achieve carbon neutrality. He proposed the international community could join the Carbon-Free Alliance to address climate change by adopting carbon-free energy. 12 years ago, Korea established an international organization called Global Green Growth Institute to support developing countries with providing low-emission green growth strategy. At the same year, we also host Green Climate Fund, the UN financial institution with the strong support of UN members. Based on the proven record to support developing countries, this time the Korea initiated Carbon-Free Alliance to facilitate developing countries to transition clean energy and their industry decarbonize electricity, and fuels they use their industrial process. The initiative aims to define the carbon-free energy and develop program for industry to get the certification scheme. Korea welcomes the UN member states and its company could join the alliance in spreading carbon-free energy throughout international community. In line with this effort, Korean government is co-hosting World Climate Industry Expo with International Energy Agency in September this year in Busan, Korea, with the theme of ushering in a carbon-free energy era with a climate technology. Last year, high-level representatives from 52 countries took part in the World Climate Industry Expo, and 500 companies participated in the exhibition. Furthermore, to assist countries that are vulnerable to climate change and accelerate their clean energy transition, Korea is scale up its green ODA. Considering that almost half of current ODA budget is being spent in the Asian continent, it is expected Korea's effort will further contribute to the energy transition in the region. Korea Energy Agency is also providing various forms of support for energy transition in our region. In Indonesia, we are supporting innovative mechanisms for industry energy efficiency together with the Green Climate Fund. Under the Article 6 of Paris Agreement, we are also investing more than $20 million in emission reduction project this year, including solar-powered charging infrastructure in Cambodia. We are doing the ODA project in the region, considering its national circumstances and the unique reality of each country. In conclusion, energy transition is critical to the achievement of the UN Sustainable Development Goal 7, which set out the global vision for affordable, reliable, and sustainable modern energy for all. This decade will be critical to meet our energy pledge, and the Republic of Korea will continue to support Asia clean energy transition. Together with our partners and the colleagues across the region, we will provide the required resources and support. I would like to thank you again for the Asian Development for hosting this great event, and then I am looking forward to fruitful deliberation throughout this week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bunam Chin, for your introductory remarks to the audience. And Korea's support is going to be vital, not only in financing, but also technology transfer for us to achieve the clean energy transition. So we very much thank Korea's support to ADB and other countries as well on this clean energy transition. With that, I would like to welcome our partners and co-organizers of ACEF since the very beginning, since I think 2005. They've been supporting ACEF, and it definitely would not be possible without the USAID. And so it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Michael Schiffer, Assistant Administrator for the Bureau of Asia for USAID. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here and to have been here since the beginning. And let me start by offering my congratulations to the Asian Development Bank and our co-organizer, the Korean Energy Agency, for convening more than 1,000 people. I think I was told actually closer to 1,500 this year, from 63 countries for ACEF 2024. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to all of the plenary speakers that we've heard from this morning, and to all of the distinguished guests that we have in the room today. As we have heard time and time again over the last few years from advocates, from our partners, and from governments around the world, we simply cannot afford to wait to take action on climate change. Over half the countries on the planet have faced a climate-related disaster, and in some cases, many, in the past 2.5 decades. Repairs and recovery have strained the global economy by more than $2 trillion. The Indo-Pacific region is the epicenter of this crisis, facing some 70% of the world's natural disasters. From rising sea levels in the Pacific to water security in Central Asia, there is no part of the Indo-Pacific, no part of Asia that is untouched by the challenges of climate change. If the harsh climate realities of today do not impress upon us the fierce urgency of now, what will it take to convince us? We have just a few years to avoid the worst consequences of climate change. Doing so is possible if we can also first address the production and use of energy and move to a net zero future. The United States believes that clean energy investment and deployment are key to increasing both energy security and also to improving the well-being of people across a wide array of sectors, including health, education, and economic growth. And I want to be clear, the United States isn't here to offer a cookie-cutter solution, because simply put, no one country can achieve net zero alone. Rather, it is together, through the strength of our commitments, our collaboration, and our actions, that we can meet our shared climate objectives. Before I update you on USAID's work and collaboration in this space, I want to also underscore an important fact, that the only sustainable pathway to a low-carbon, climate-resilient global economy is a just and inclusive one. At USAID, this belief drives our efforts. In every action that we take across the Indo-Pacific and beyond, USAID works to reduce gaps and to promote gender equality and equity and to raise the voice of traditionally underrepresented groups. This means that more women, girls, and other marginalized communities can be lifted out of energy poverty. USAID also takes pride in modeling the leadership of women in a just energy transition. For instance, in tomorrow's session on multilateral power trade, there will be an all-women delegation of USAID professionals and partners. And I hope that you will join me in looking forward to these and other diverse sessions at this forum, and with more in the future. And now I'd like to update you on what USAID has been doing in the Indo-Pacific energy space since last year's Asia Clean Energy Forum. At the highest level, USAID's partnerships provide a better future for people around the Indo-Pacific region through greater access to reliable electricity. Our work supports the creation of reliable, resilient energy systems that are both widely accessible and affordable for countries and for consumers. USAID is focused on strengthening the regional entities at the forefront of the renewable energy revolution. With the ASEAN Center for Energy in Laos, for instance, we're expanding cross-border power trade through the ASEAN Power Grid, a pivotal tool for accelerating net zero. The ultimate goal of the grid, as many of you know, is to enable countries with abundant clean energy potential to supplement the energy needs of countries with fewer resources or higher energy demand. An integrated grid will facilitate economic development, enhance access to clean energy, and build resilient energy systems. The Lao PDR, which assumed the ASEAN chairmanship this year, exemplifies the potential that the ASEAN power grid will unleash. Laos is harnessing its diverse mix of renewable resources to advance regional energy security by participating in the grid. I look forward to seeing Laos solidify its role as a renewable energy powerhouse at the heart of Southeast Asia's energy transition. In 2021, USAID and the Center teamed up for a research project that illuminated the full scope of what it will take to bring the dream of this grid into reality. Building on this important research, earlier this year, USAID, the U.S. Trade and Development Agency, and the ASEAN Center for Energy mobilized $2 million for feasibility studies that have jump-started the build-out of 2 critical transmission interconnectors between Indonesia and Malaysia. USAID is pleased to help advance the ASEAN power grid and to support our partners in pooling resources and sharing infrastructure. Sharing infrastructure that can reduce the reliance on fossil fuels and unleash the progress that we are making on shared development goals. Through all our work, we focus on local partnerships, on data-driven decision-making, and on collaboration. And I'm very proud that together we are taking action now to realize the region's renewable energy future. And of course, much remains to be done. Collectively, we must maximize our efforts. In particular, regional organizations in Asia have the potential and the expertise to both develop tailored solutions and to fully implement them. All of us here today, the private sector, government agencies, key sectoral and regional bodies, the abundance of expertise in this room, have a shared mandate to take action now, to cooperate, to bring all interests to the table, especially the interests of the most vulnerable, and to accelerate an equitable, inclusive, and sustainable transition to a net zero future, and to do so by 2030. As always, the United States, the American people, through USAID, stand ready to support you, shoulder to shoulder. I look forward to learning more and to hearing how this forum can help advance these ambitious and necessary goals through urgent action now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael Schiffer, for your introductory remarks as well. And again, for all your support that you've given to ASEF. And we're very much looking forward to the session tomorrow with all women participants, speakers as well. And there'll be another session also on Thursday, women-led, on focusing on South Asia. Also, would like to thank you for all the experts you have brought from international, from NRL and others as well, to make ASEF with the best speakers that we can get worldwide. With that, it's my pleasure now to start a more interactive session. So it's more about to get to know you better, know the work you're doing, what's your challenges, and where can we collaborate. So it's my pleasure to welcome somebody that's been involved in ASEF for many years and has been co-supporter and is supporting us this year with ASEF to make it a huge success. So it's my pleasure to welcome Peter Dupont, co-CEO of Asia Clean Energy Partners. Thank you.
Thank you, David. This is my 18th ASEF, and I always get that nervous energy. We're halfway through, and we want to hear from you. And all you need is a smartphone. So get out your smartphones, please. We're going to do a little poll. This is called Audience Pulse. It's really, really easy. Really, really easy. We want to hear who you are, where you're from, what kind of organization you work for, what areas you work for, and a little bit, the last question is a word cloud. How are you feeling? So when you click on it, when it opens up, you're going to get to the starting page. And as soon as we have a critical mass, which we're about to have, we'll start the first question. Everybody ready to roll? Okay, thumbs up. Okay, first question, please. Okay, so this is which region you are from and this is where you live and work, not your nationality. Not surprisingly, Southeast Asia is surging to the lead. Followed closely by South Asia. Pacific has a very strong showing. Okay, if you have not opened your smartphone, it's not too late to join the poll. Okay, so yeah, not bad. We have a fair number of people from other regions, including Africa, North America, Europe, etc. Next question, please. Okay, this is what type of organization you work for. We just want to get a sense of who is in the room. So, you know, are you government? Are you private sector? Are you NGO? International Development Agency. We need more bankers. Come on, Ramesh, where are the bankers? Okay. I think we will be well represented throughout the week, though. Probably need more academics to help us think through these thorny problems as well. That's great. Okay, so next question. Okay, so this is, what are the two main clean energy technologies that you work on? This is focused on the technologies. You can pick up to two. We just want to get a sense of what's popular in the room here. What are you working on? So we have renewables, not surprisingly, surging to the lead. Energy efficiency, I'm going to put my money on that, but I'll take, the odds are low that energy efficiency will surge. But Kia Ratanak, I loved what you said. What we can't save, we must produce sustainably. And I will put that in the newsletter tomorrow. That was a great way of saying energy efficiency first. Great. Okay, so not so much CCUS or nuclear. We have 11 people working on nuclear. That's good to see. We will probably need some in the future. Next. Okay, which subsectors do you cover? So this is the sectoral area you work in. Not the type of work you do, just which sectors? Buildings, industry, transport, power transmission. Okay. A lot of renewable power and a lot of power transmission. We have a whole track this year on transmission and distribution. In fact, we have, I think, 5 sessions at ASIF on regional power trade, which you mentioned, Michael, in your remarks. So that's a big topic as well. We probably need more people in buildings and industry. We probably need a joint energy and transport, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but an energy and transport forum, because there's so much linkages between those two sectors. But we have a number of people here, 90 people working on transport. Next. And what's your main type or area of activity? So this is not the sector you work in, but what you do. Are you working on policy? Are you working on finance? Finance is surging to the lead. Policy and regulation is catching up. It's a dogfight with project developers. By a nose, okay. So that's just a flavor of who's in the room here. Sort of nice to sort of talk to each other through knowing who is here. Next slide, please. Okay, now this, you need to have manual dexterity. You basically click and drag. So you have 5 options and you click and drag them to the top, and then you can rank them. So we want you to rank the technologies in terms of priority for action, okay? And when you move them up, once you move them up to the top, you can fiddle with the rankings to get the one you feel most important at the top. So we have, again, renewables is edging energy efficiency. Melanie, we need you to work harder. Melanie Slade from IEA will be here all week pushing her energy efficiency agenda. Energy storage, looking quite good, and other technologies. And again, so initially we had 8 options, and it was just too much work to do the drag and drop. Okay, so I believe the last one is how you're feeling. So move on to the last question. In one word, any word, how do you feel about the clean energy transition in Asia and the Pacific? Hope. Now we have a small disappointed, but mostly optimistic. Who said disappointed? We'll talk to you on, by the way, we're going to do this again on Friday to take your temperature again. So the disappointed person, I want to talk to you after this, and well, okay. With that, I thank you very much, and we're going to go on to the keynotes, which will be awesome, and then we'll go into the coffee break before part 2. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think everybody was quite entertained and enjoyed this moment, and so you get to know most of the people that will be here. So you saw quite a strong participation from government side. We definitely need to move energy efficiency up to the first fuel. That's where it should be, of course, and we'll have a session dedicated on energy efficiency, and we'll be talking about that. We're running a bit behind schedule, so I will move now to our other keynote addresses, and it's a real pleasure to have here somebody from the Pacific Islands to give their perspective of the clean energy transition. And of course, they have their own challenges, and we would be amiss if we didn't include somebody here to bring their perspective and how they're trying to address and bringing in more renewable energy, battery storage, energy efficiency into their country. So it's a real pleasure to invite Mr. Sione Akola, Chief Executive Officer. And as he told me, it's the Ministry of Everything. And so I will pronounce, hopefully you will remember the name of the ministry at the end. So Ministry of Meteorology, Energy Information, Disaster Management, Environment, Climate Change, and Communications. Pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Asakawa, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, co-organizers, donor partners, ladies and gentlemen. The government of Tonga convey our most gratitude for our invitation and participation of this forum. I also extend our most sincere gratitude to the partners, organizers, and the sponsors for excellent organization of this important annual event and for the kind hospitality accorded to me and Tonga delegation. It is indeed my honor to deliver this keynote on the opening plenary and first day of the Asia Clean Energy Forum 2024 here at the ADB headquarters in beautiful Manila. So please bear with me and please fasten your seatbelt as we are about to have a journey to the Pacific. With your own safety, there will be a few bumpy, but that's how we experience climate change in our region. In the Pacific region, leaders of our Blue Pacific continent have been calling for improved energy security over the past decades, noting the critical role that clean energy plays in development process, as access to sustainable modern energy services contributes to poverty eradication, creation of sustainable livelihoods, improve human well-being and social equity, saves lives, improves health, helps provide for basic human needs. Clean energy stands at the center of global efforts to move towards cleaner economies and sustainable development, including poverty eradication. Clean energy technologies are important energy supply options, as well as key resources for addressing universal energy access, energy security, and climate change. Although the role of energy is increasing in both developing and developed countries, the overall contribution of clean energy to global energy systems remain limited. The Pacific Island countries and territories face multiple short-term shocks and long-term stresses that impact on their energy system. Short-term shocks include cyclones, associated storm surge, and geological disturbances causing both earthquakes and tsunamis. And the long-term stresses include sea level rise and coastal flooding. Our vulnerability was highlighted when fuel price spiked in the past decade, resulting in an increased emphasis on energy efficiency, particularly on use of local available renewable energy resources. To our Pacific, it is a transformation and transition into a cleaner energy ecosystem-friendly society, which is not going to happen overnight, for it will need commitment of efforts, resources, and investment. The transformation itself also presents challenges in formulating a common framework for the way forward, although various outcome measures have now been employed. The Pacific is undergoing a significant energy transition, moving away from fossil fuel towards more sustainable and climate-friendly energy sources. The region is rich in renewable energy sources with potential for hydropower, solar, wind, ocean, hydrogen, geothermal, and bioenergy. In the Pacific, a total renewable energy stored capacity in the power sector of over 800 megawatt. Of course, we can reduce fossil fuel dependence, cut energy costs, create local employment, and increase climate resilience given the region's small carbon footprint and vulnerability to natural disasters, which place an emphasis on reducing carbon emissions. But to meet our nationally determined contribution targets, Pacific Island countries and territories need to double its current renewable energy capacities and require estimated investment of $6 billion. Pacific Island countries have strategic national policy frameworks and roadmaps which are in place to guide the continued development in energy sector. Tonga, like the other Pacific Island states, heavily depend on imports to meet energy needs, including electricity generation. Our economic development and growth are highly reliant on fossil fuel energy sources, with a total of 1.3 billion liters of fuel imported into the Pacific region per year, making us vulnerable to interruption in supply and to rising fuel costs. The Pacific has ambitious renewable energy targets to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, improve energy security, and provide leadership for international climate action by setting an example for other regions. Some progress is being made via national strategic plans and sector-specific policies, as well as via international agreement, such as nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement. Tokelau has celebrated as the world's first nation to achieve 100% renewable electricity, and almost all of the Pacific Island countries and territories have similarly ambitious renewable energy targets, with many planning to achieve 100% renewables by 2030 or sooner. Electricity access targets remain a key focus for countries such as Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, and Vanuatu that have lower levels of energy access. Tonga has just reached 99% electricity access at the end of last year. It is obvious that its inclusion in policy and program design can safeguard and accelerate the transition to clean, sustainable, affordable, and resilient energy for all, and enable Pacific Island countries and territories to achieve targets. Indeed, the region has been a forerunner in transitioning to a resilient approach in energy through the policy of action for the framework of action for energy security in Pacific 2010-2020, and a new framework for energy security and resilience in the Pacific 2021-2030. Energy resilience is also embedded in the framework of resilient development in the Pacific 2017-2030. At the national level, disaster resilience has increasingly been integrated into energy and climate policies, including in Tonga, Fiji, Vanuatu, and Tuvalu, while Palau considers resilience to be a key aspect as ensuring the security of their energy supply. Of course, being resilient in every aspect of life is considered by the Pacific Island countries and territories as very critical for us small island states scattered in the huge Pacific Ocean. And Tonga, as an incoming host and chair of 33rd Pacific Island Forum Leaders Forums in August, launched the forum's theme, A Transformative and Resilient Pacifica, Build Better Now. The Pacific has identified key thematic innovation priorities that are instrumental to achieve energy resilience while also meeting the energy targets in each country, especially the areas of renewable, efficiency, sustainability, accessibility, and affordability to the people. First is better integration of energy planning and innovation finance approaches tailored to the energy resilience, strengths, and challenges in the Pacific Island countries and territories. We cannot put words into deed and actions if we have very limited access to financial resources. Second is greater engagement with community responses. Existing forms of resilience exist within the region's communities that can be enhanced and developed and deployed in the energy sector. Final theme is the promotion of decentralizing approaches in terms of both governance and technologies to enhance energy access and resilience. The boom in smaller offshore solar technologies also offers new means for realizing access, but the technology needs to combine with relevant governance approaches to achieve its resilience potential. We are here in one of Asia's clean energy major events, the ACEF, which has been running for years with this year's objective or theme to accelerating the clean energy transition and ensuring energy security and affordability. Time for urgent action now. ACEF 2024 looks also into increasing awareness and shared knowledge about innovative and effective approaches, including policy and regulatory frameworks, business models, and financing solutions that improve energy security, energy access to affordable energy, promote good governance, and encourage private sector participation. The convening of ACEF 2024 and similar initiatives in our region and beyond, to me, is testament of the recognition of how fundamental, how vital it is to come together and deal with challenges the Asia-Pacific region is facing, especially due to the effect of the activities in the energy sector that contribute to these causes of climate change. Our region ensures our well-being, our welfare, but beyond that, the survival and welfare of all of us globally. I believe that a wide range of clean energy practitioners from across Asia and the Pacific who are attending and participating at this ACEF 2024 will develop promising technological and financial solutions to our problems. Tonga and the Pacific countries and territories are standing together with the sponsors and organizers to support the aims of this morning open plenary session to highlight the contribution and prospects of financing clean energy solutions as we continue our mission in pursuing inclusive and sustainable development in Asia and the Pacific. Nevertheless, still much remains to be done. Innovative approaches that addresses the unique challenges and make use of the strengths in the region are needed to realize the ambitions of Pacific Island countries and territories, and this would benefit from greater focus on energy resilience and easy accessibility to financial resources. Yet, there is a particular need for working that integrates relevant knowledge from diverse fields such as energy, resilience, and innovation with a deep understanding of our region and our people. And more importantly, to provide financial facilities that are easy to access by the Pacific Island countries to get funding for financing clean energy projects. I'd like to acknowledge the main conveners, ADB, USAID, and Korean Energy Agency for organizing this forum for clean energy. This event will provide a major platform for communication, networking, cooperation, and allows government representatives, the private sector, academia, research organizations, investors, developers, and entrepreneurs to exchange ideas, knowledge, and views on the critical issue facing this ongoing clean energy revolution. We have witnessed the gains of the renewable energy technologies, the electricity sector, and the increasing use of electric vehicles in the transport sector. But still, more can be done from our energy and transport sectors that enhance a cleaner, greener, and a healthy planet. I am sure this event will provide an opportunity to build momentum and strengthen dialogue, accelerating universal energy access and enhancing the use of efficient and clean energy technologies, and to provide financial solutions that are more accessible to us. I wish to reiterate the purpose of this platform, that we note it is significant importance, and let us all steer together the sustainable will in the universal push towards a resilient world. I'd like to echo again the importance of ACEF 2024 theme, accelerating the clean energy transition and ensuring energy security and affordability. Time for action now. Last but not least, I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of our Blue Pacific countries and territories to convey our sincere gratitude and appreciation to ADB for all the financial support that's been given to us. And for the Director General Guterres and Director Mitsuhashi for excellent leadership and guidance that have been given to us through million-dollar projects in all sectors, including energy sector. As I stated earlier, we cannot urgently action now if there is no easy access to funding. Time is very critical in our fight against climate change. And climate finance is also a key game changer in our actions. But unfortunately, time is not in our side. Director General, I also like to acknowledge all the good work done by the ADB staff here at the headquarters, the staff at the ADB sub-regional in Fiji, and also ADB staff in our representative office in Tonga. I am confident that your good office, DG, and the excellent support from the Director of Energy's office will bring more ADB-funded projects to our Blue Pacific region, including Tonga. Wish you all the best and a fruitful dialogue this week. I thank you all. Mahalo abito.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sione Akola, the Chief Executive Officer of Ministry of Everything. And we very much appreciate your insights into the Pacific, because the clean energy transition is not the same in every country. And as you can see, energy resilience or climate resilience is quite an important aspect for infrastructure, whether it's transmission, distribution, renewable energy as well. So it's always very important to highlight, and again, ADB is looking forward to continue to support the Pacific Islands. And we have a very big delegation from several of the Pacific Islands that are members of the ADB here. I'd like to now invite, and so we were on a journey in Pacific. We're now moving to the middle of India, to Madhya Pradesh. And it's so important to understand that it's not all about central governments and ministries. State governments and local governments can also play a role. They can be champions of the clean energy transition. They can be champions of renewable energy and energy efficiency. So it's really important to highlight the role, and we're delighted to have here Manu Srivastav, Additional Chief Secretary of Madhya Pradesh Energy Department in India, to share how they are moving ahead and delivering the clean energy transition, and particularly with looking at renewable energy. So it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be in ADB and a part of ACF. As has been said, I represent India. I represent a state, Madhya Pradesh, which literally means central part of India. But more importantly, I represent the idea that we can do things, we can make changes, that innovations are possible, and this is what I would like to speak about. I largely speak about, let's say I would go back and I would speak about two projects that we have implemented that have fundamentally changed the way solar projects are structured in India. I would talk about a fairly big project, a 750 megawatt project, and I would talk about small projects, rooftop projects. So I would go to the two ends of the spectrum and say how the same principles of innovation, of de-risking can bring down the solar prices. So the first project I talk about is Riva. It is a 750 megawatt project over an area of 15 square kilometers. Before this project in India, solar energy projects were dependent on something called viability gap funding. This is the first project in India which brought down the prices of solar energy below that of coal-based prices. Before this project, the scenario in India was that Government of India companies used to give something called a viability gap funding to supply solar power at rates of around 6 cents per unit. And even the 6 cents per unit or 4.5 rupees per unit was more than the cost of coal-based power. So the idea was that Government of India companies were using viability gap funding to bring down the cost of solar power, and still that cost was higher than that of coal-based power. We started off on the same path, saying that we would just arrange land and everything else would be done by the Government of India companies. But later we expanded our scope and we ended up doing everything that had to be done about the project, and thankfully so. And these were the rates we got. The first year rates that we got were lower than 4 US cents per unit. This was without any subsidy. This has fundamentally changed, and there was huge investor participation. It was a state-run project. 20 companies participated, including 6 multinationals. This has changed the way projects have been structured in the country. The Government of India withdrew all their tenders, their companies withdrew all their tenders, and Government of India issued guidelines laying down how solar energy projects should be structured. They're essentially principles of de-risking, of risk mitigation, of making the projects bankable, making them viable. Now, it's legally binding for all projects above 5 megawatt in India to be structured on these principles, which have been legally notified and which are framed on the basis of what we had done in Riva. Interestingly, Delhi Metro runs on this project in Riva, which is around, I think, 700 kilometers away from Delhi. Around 60% of the daytime power of Delhi Metro comes from this project, and they save almost a billion rupees every year. And interestingly, for those who are slightly geeky minded, we don't give a solar profile to the Delhi Metro. We give a flat profile to Delhi Metro, which suits the requirement more. The project was inaugurated by the Prime Minister. This has got the World Bank President Award. I got a clearance from ADB that we can talk about the World Bank here, so it's okay. This project has been, there is a case study on the project in Harvard University, in Singapore Management University. Government of India has recognized it. So, and we use the same principles of risk mitigation in a rooftop solar project. Essentially, the principles are the same. We were talking of a 750 megawatt project earlier, or a 15 square kilometer area, and now we are talking about a project on the top of a roof. But the principles were precisely the same. This is the discount that we got over the prevailing discom rates. The rates were the lowermost in the country. They have yet to be matched. We got huge international participation. These are the buildings where the projects are actually being established and are running, including Government of India organizations like IIM Indore and so on. This is the project in IIM Indore, for example. So this is with zero investment from IIM. They get power saving almost 4 lakh rupees per month. And this project continues to be talked about. So the photograph you see is of Secretary Government of India who had come last month to Indore, and he went to see this project. This is another place. So the DG of International Solar Organization, he had actually come to the signing of the power purchase agreement for the project. These are the savings. For example, he picked up 7 medical colleges, zero investment by them, and they make huge savings. So the principle is zero investment, savings from day one, moving towards net zero. We did a lot of innovations, we developed a data room, etc. ADB has done a case study on the project. We are going ahead. I think the new few innovations that we are trying is, the general perception is that RESCO or this PPP mode is viable only for big projects. So that the second thing that we are mentioning here is that we are trying to aggregate small buildings in a district and trying to have a RESCO of a district-based RESCO of all those small buildings. The idea is to attract a different class of investors, not the investors whom perhaps you and I know socially, not the sort of investors who have their board meetings at 5-star hotels, but smaller investors who work locally and who can manage a RESCO at a local level. Thirdly, we are doing a RESCO on in a residential area, something that has not been attempted. We are trying to bring in the DISCOM to work together with the developer so that the risk and the effort of bill collection is handled, and we're trying to implement on in the domestic area. Now we are also shifting our focus because the price issue on the cost issue on renewable energy, I think, has already been addressed. Now the issue is there is a lot of concern being expressed that how much renewable energy can be handled, how much renewable energy can the system accommodate. So those are the issues that we're trying to develop, we are trying to handle. So there is a project that we have in government in India, which is largely a project of decentralized solar of around 5, 10, 20 megawatt projects. There's some sort of a decentralized project generation, which has some subsidy as well. But we are trying to use the project not just to reduce the cost of the solar power, but to address more fundamental problems. I'll just talk about a little bit about that. We are trying to, the challenge of renewable energy increasingly is that it is challenging or disturbing the status quo. So usually the utilities find it a problem to adjust this renewable energy. So we are now trying to address the problems of the utilities using renewable energy, to convey to them that we are not something that are disturbing how things are, but trying to address your problems. So one of the fundamental problems, one of the big problems of utilities is, for example, in India, is that our substations are overloaded. And ideally what needs to be done is that we need to invest in upgrading those substations. That is how it is done. Now we are using renewable energy to try to solve that problem with a very simple change. We are not injecting above the substations. We are injecting below the substations. So by injecting downstream of the substations, I'm trying to convey that by saying what is the wrong place to do it. So we have 132, 33 kV substations, and we have 33, 11 kV substations. So rather than injecting at the higher voltage level, we are injecting at the lower voltage side of the 33, 11 substation. The idea is that if we do that, we are virtually increasing the capacity of the overloaded transformer. So if there is a 5 MVA transformer, and if we inject 5 megawatt solar downstream of that on the LV side, we are virtually increasing the capacity of the 5 MVA transformer to that of a 10 MVA transformer. So we avoid or postpone the investment that would have been necessary to be made by the DISCOM for upgrading their infrastructure. So we are trying to address the problem of our utility through renewable energy, so making it them allies rather than competitors. So this is what we are achieving. Apart from upgrading the capacity of the transformer, another huge advantage that we get is that we are able to supply real-time solar power to a larger category of customers. And solar power today being the cheapest form of power. Because we have handled the problem of overloading of a substation, we can enable supply of real-time solar power to a larger category of our customers. We are trying to supply more of our customers because of having addressed this problem during solar hours, which helps in the overall accounting. Another very important thing that we are trying to address is that of reactive power. As many of you might be aware of, in rural areas, a huge problem is that of voltage drop. Voltage drop is not caused because there is less power. Voltage drop is caused because of inductive nature of the load. Renewable energy has been accused of injecting at unity power factor and disturbing the grid. We are trying to encourage renewable energy generators to supply the reactive power and thus address the voltage problem of voltage profile. The beauty of decentralized generation is that since the problem of reactive power is dispersed or distributed in nature, distributed generation by its very nature can address that problem since it is distributed in nature, and the problem that is being trying to be addressed is also distributed in nature. I think it makes for a perfect combination. So this is another problem of utilities that we are trying to address. I would just talk about two more projects that we are doing. One is, there's been a lot of talk of fixed dispatch RE. I mean, there's a topic that would excite a lot of interest, but the short point is that our view has been that if there is a bartender who has to sell cocktails and you have 1,000 liquor bottles behind you, you don't, and if you have to sell a new cocktail, you don't buy a cocktail. You buy vanilla liquor, mix it and sell it. Because it is job of states, job of state load dispatch centers to mix various sources of power and match the demand profile. So rather than buying fixed dispatch RE, perhaps it makes more sense. This is what exactly we have done. A 600 megawatt project, FDRE project, was in motion. And now we have halted it and we're changing it to a solar plus battery project. We would independently source wind. We would independently source power from the exchange and do it. And the last change, we are coming up with another project. This is a 2,000 megawatt project. The demand of power in the state is not fixed throughout the year. It is higher in 6 months and not as high in the other months. So we are setting up a project which would be, the power would be procured for 6 months by Madhya Pradesh, our state, and by another neighboring state, Uttar Pradesh, for another 6 months. The first time such a project would be implemented. And as the project is close to the other state, we would be laying a dedicated pipeline, a transmission line for that without depending upon the national grid. So these are the changes they're trying to bring. If anyone wants any excess presentation, here it is. The brief idea is that the innovation is possible, that one can do things that can change the system. All these projects have been tried at the state level. So by an organization which did not have an office, which had just some temporary people working, but with the idea to make changes, make fundamental changes, and we have succeeded. I think that is the only message that I would have, that we can make changes. Thanks to ADB for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manushira Sav, for your presentation. Again, an example of how local governments can lead by example, and that's so much needed, and the importance of aggregation, particularly for rooftop solar, to get the prices down, make these more attractive as well for investors and for companies, developers to bid for these. With that, we have our final keynote address. And of course, we are not able to do the clean energy transition in many countries without concessional finance, without grants. It's very much needed. The amount of investment that is needed is, we're moving from billions to trillions of dollars. And of course, the Green Climate Fund plays a vital role in that. So it's my pleasure. Unfortunately, Mafalda Duarte, Executive Director of the Green Climate Fund, was not able to come last minute, but we're very happy to have a recording by Kavita Singha, Private Sector Facility Director from the Green Climate Fund, to showcase what the Green Climate Fund is doing for the clean energy transition. Video, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Songdo, South Korea, the headquarters of the Green Climate Fund, the world's largest dedicated climate finance organization. I'm delighted to join the distinguished panelists today at the plenary session of the Asia Clean Energy Forum. I'd like to thank the Asian Development Bank, one of GCF's largest partners, for inviting us to join this forum and for keeping the spotlight on clean energy. At GCF, we recognize that we cannot talk about the role we play in climate finance without talking about the just and clean energy transition, including in Asia and the Pacific regions. Over 150 million people in this region still lack access to electricity. Many more lack access to clean and modern cooking sources, and the population in many countries is still young, growing, and urbanizing rapidly, where demand for clean energy for buildings, transport, urban infrastructure, and industry is just starting. Yet, the region contributes to over half of the world's greenhouse gas emissions. These statistics illustrate the whole spectrum of development, social, and climate challenges this region faces. The region is also home to some of the world's most vulnerable people who are at the front lines of climate change and urgently need access to technology and solutions that work for them, for building resilience and adaptive capacity. On the flip side of these challenges is opportunity. Opportunities for new investment, opportunities for new business models, opportunities for innovation, and opportunities for rapidly scaling up advanced energy solutions. And Asia is seizing this opportunity. In 2023, nearly 70% of global renewable energy capacity was installed in this region. Global Wind Energy Council estimates that APAC region will contribute to nearly half of the 380 gigawatt offshore wind energy installed capacity by 2032. The region also represents the largest market for the generation and use of green hydrogen, which can drive decarbonization of energy-intensive materials and long-distance vehicles, which are used for heavy transportation. The region already leads in the manufacturing of clean energy solutions such as electric vehicles and other renewable technologies. Some experts opine that the pathway to 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario will depend on rapidly increasing the share of electricity in the overall energy mix to about 60% and ensuring most of that electricity is from renewable sources, reducing energy demand to half and supporting the development of new low-emission fuels. However, given the region's diversity, it necessitates country and capacity differentiated pathways and timelines of transition. Also, catalytic and concessional finance needs to scale rapidly to ensure transition to a just, sustainable, low-emission, climate-resilient future. This will require an additional 1.5 trillion, or approximately 5% of the GDP of the region, every year by 2030, to fill the finance gap for energy transition alone. For the least developed nations in this region, the financing shortfall is even more pronounced. Some estimates peg it at 20% of their GDP. Unlocking private finance, hence, is pivotal for mobilizing the trillions needed in this decade and the next 3 decades of climate action. Today, the private sector manages more than 210 trillion US dollars in assets, but only a small share of it is dedicated to climate investments. And much of that investment is concentrated in developed markets and a handful of larger emerging markets. GCF plays a pivotal role in shifting and catalyzing financial flows for a country-driven, just, and clean energy transition, both on the supply side and the demand side of the energy spectrum, among other areas. We use our resources strategically to crowd in public and private financing to overcome market failures that are preventing capital flows for energy transition, even though some of the technologies are currently more competitive than the incumbent technologies. Our grant funding enables policy de-risking, pre-investment support, and capacity building. Our equity investments and risk mitigators, such as guarantees, first loss protection, and long tenor concessional capital, allows our investment partners achieve climate impact where it is needed while simultaneously generating returns based on their risk-return expectations. Allow me to present a couple of examples to illustrate how GCF works. ADB's Pacific Islands Renewable Energy Investment Program is helping 7 Pacific small island developing countries to achieve their energy transition aspirations. GCF is providing 22 million of the total 31 million grant-funded program, which is financing battery energy storage, as well as regulatory, policy, legal, and other institutional capacity, including pre-investment project support, to the Pacific SIDS. Success of these programs will enable other private and public investors to come in after us. In another example, we are supporting PTSMI through the Project Preparation Facility, which is a grant, the development of the Climate Finance Facility to support energy transition in Indonesia. This facility is part of Indonesia's overall energy transition plan and will support the innovation and validation of business models to sustainably develop and operate small-scale renewable energy projects in vulnerable communities in the selected frontiers, outermost underdeveloped areas in Indonesia. And finally, an example of our equity investments related to energy transition for crowding in commercial capital is our 200 million first loss and anchor equity investment in the 1.5 billion India e-mobility financing platform brought to us by our partner, Macquarie Alternative Assets Management. This platform will use a leasing and financing model for fleet electrification and electric charging infrastructure. The platform was launched recently and is in advanced stages of portfolio level investments already. These examples are a small illustration of our approach of working closely with our partners to drive climate impact. As on date, GCF has committed $4.5 billion for clean energy transition, of which $1.5 billion is for the Asia Pacific region. This is mobilizing an additional $17.5 billion at portfolio level for clean energy transition and $6.3 billion of this in direct co-financing in the Asia Pacific region. In 2024, we entered a new strategic programming cycle where we are committing to increasing our programming by 30%. Our new executive director has launched reforms to our partnership and access models, as well as internal process reforms to more efficiently deliver impacts where it is needed most. With these reforms in place, we look forward to build on our current partnerships in the region and forge new ones to expedite energy transition, unlock available opportunities, and above all, support the provision of clean energy services to the hardest to reach. I would like to express my gratitude once again for this opportunity to share my thoughts. Together, through collaborative efforts and innovative solutions, we can address the pressing challenges of our time and pave the way for a sustainable, prosperous future for all. I wish you all an exciting and engaging discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for Ms. Kavita Singh for her remarks, and also for the Green Climate Fund for the close collaboration we've had with ADB. And there's a lot to do. We need to make sure that the funding from GCF reaches those countries in most in need. And so we're looking forward to working carefully, closely with the Green Climate Fund on the clean energy transition in Asia and the Pacific. With that, we will now proceed to the morning break. So it's time for you to network. We're running about 10 minutes behind schedule, so we are asking everybody to come back by 11:10. So welcome back to the part 2 of the opening plenary. And now, as you saw from the session, we really wanted to talk about how can we move from billions to trillions of dollars to enable the clean energy transition in a very short period of time. And as we mentioned several times, there's not enough funding from governments, there's not enough funding from donors, there's not enough funding from the multilateral development banks, the private sector is going to have to come in. And the private sector is actually going to be critical to be able to finance a lot of the clean energy transition, whether we're talking about renewable energy, whether we're talking about transmission, distribution, and energy efficiency as well. So it's vital that we bring the private sector into the conversation, that they give us their perspectives, they give us their challenges, and where they're needing support from the governments, so that the enabling framework is there and is in place to unlock that investment. The money is there, we have always heard it, the money is there to be used, but it just needs to be unlocked and the projects can be financed. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Satoru Harada, Chief Operating Officer of Power Division of Marubeni Corporation, to deliver his keynote address. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Satoru Harada, Marubeni Corporation from Japan. This year, there has been unprecedented heat waves in many Asian countries. I have heard that temperature in Manila could reach 38 degrees Celsius in April, which is I did not experience when I lived here in Manila 15 years ago. Under these circumstances, the theme for this forum, accelerating the clean energy transition and ensuring energy security and affordability, time for urgent action now, has never been more relevant. Therefore, it's a great honor for me to be given an opportunity to explain Marubeni's efforts and ambitions towards accelerating clean energy transitions. Thank you. We aspire to become a forerunner in green business. The boxes circled in red on the slide indicate the green businesses under Marubeni's power divisions, which are expected to make significant contributions to decarbonizations. The first is our renewable energy business, which has strong basis and is further expanding. The second is transition technologies like CCS and CCUS. The third is distributed generation, battery storage, demand response, ancillary services, and virtual power plant businesses. Next, please. As a brief background, Marubeni has been engaged in power business in Asia since the 1950s, starting with equipment supply. From the 1970s, we have delivered turnkey EPC solutions, achieving a track record in Asia of 67 gigawatt. In the 1990s, we entered the IPP sector. The map on this slide shows our generation portfolio in Asia. As of April 30 this year, our global and Asia generation portfolio is 36 gigawatt gross and 14.5 gigawatt, respectively. Compared to other regions, our portfolio in Asia currently comprises more thermal projects, and therefore, we expect this to change as we deliver more clean energy. Next. I would like to introduce some renewable assets we own in Asia, among others. The first is the San Roque Hydro Power Project in the Philippines, which has been in operation since 2003. On the right, you can see the picture of our floating solar power plant in Taiwan. We own Chenya Energy, which is one of the largest floating solar developers in the world. We have also completed the first commercial-based utility-scale offshore wind power plant in Japan in 2022. The picture on the bottom right shows our geothermal asset in Indonesia. Next, please. Marubeni is also involved in the power supply and retail businesses. Our approaches in this area is to provide customers with access to renewable energy, dialogue with governments and regulators, and harness our experiences in the UK, Australia, the US, and Japan. The companies shaded in red are Marubeni entities that conduct power supply and retail businesses. As you can see, we conduct globally. In this area, we aim to continue to be a leading market force, address our customers beyond electricity generation, and advance the global journey toward RE100. Here, I would like to explain our recent activities in Asia. Our approach can be summarized in 3 key words. The first is carbon neutral. The second is transition fuel. And the third is 4D, namely decarbonization, deregulation, decentralization, and digitalization. Next. With Marubeni's approach in mind, we would like to introduce our activities in Vietnam, which represents our recent activities in Asia very well. Vietnam has announced its target to achieve net zero in 2050. As you can see in the chart on the left, it has 3 main targets in terms of power generation forecast. First, gas-fired project will be introduced to meet the immediate demands and gradually shift to hydrogen mixed combustion. And Marubeni is developing Omon-2 gas-fired combined cycle and Quan Ninh energy to power project as seen in the purple boxes. The second, renewable generation volume will be kept for the time being. Then wind and solar project will be increased, especially after 2032. Based on our experience in Japan and Europe, Marubeni is actively promoting offshore wind project as well as rooftop solar PV. The third, Vietnam targets to introduce battery after 2035 gradually. In this regard, we are developing battery storage project as well as EV battery ecosystem with Ping Group. At this juncture, I would like to turn to our activities on decarbonization in Asia. These last 2 pages are most important part of my presentation because this is advertisement of ADB. ETM, Energy Transition Mechanism, is an innovative finance approach led by ADB to support the transition from coal-fired generation to clean energy. Now, Marubeni intends to shorten the PPA period of the Cirebon 1 coal-fired power plant in Indonesia in exchange for ETM refinancing. If you look at the schematic on this slide, under the ETM scheme, we will draw down on ETM debt to fully repay the existing debt and pay out a special dividend to shareholders at the same time. Then repay the ETM debt through the shortened PPA period. While the early retirement may reduce our profit, the special dividend is expected to neutralize the NPV of the dividend cash flow before and after the refinancing. More importantly, the cash generated through the ETM can be partly reinvested into new clean energy projects to replace the early retired generation capacity. This early retirement of Cirebon 1 will reduce about 27 million tons of CO2 emissions. This reduction is equivalent to the annual CO2 emissions of 10 million households, or the forest absorption capacity of 1.2 billion mature trees per year. In addition, Marubeni is also involved in the following activities to contribute to the decarbonization in Asia. In Vietnam, we have executed an MOU with EVN in 2022 for a collaboration towards achievement of a decarbonized society. And in Indonesia, the project companies for Cirebon 1 and Cirebon expansion are exploring ammonia and biomass co-firing and CCS as well. These efforts evidence Marubeni's commitment to accelerate decarbonization. This is the end of my presentation. In order to accelerate clean energy transition, Marubeni will continue to do what we can do and we should do. In doing so, it's indispensable to have good coordination and collaboration with our various stakeholders. Your continuous support would be very much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Satoru Harada, for your presentation. And it's great to highlight that Marubeni is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with a lot of investments. And it's so interesting to see the transition they are doing and support they're providing, while also trying to ensure energy security and affordability in many of these countries. And it's very important that we engage with companies like Marubeni and many other companies to help them in this transition and find investments in the clean energy and renewable energy and other areas. With that, it's my pleasure now to move to another keynote address, again focusing mostly on the private sector, but this time how we can set up enabling framework through green taxonomy to get the financial markets to invest in the clean energy transition and green energy and other projects. And it's a real pleasure. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today in person, but he has done a recording, and it's quite impressive what has been achieved with green taxonomy in the People's Republic of China and how impactful that has been. So I really ask you to pay attention to this video and to see the huge transformation that has been possible with simple enabling framework. And that is my pleasure to invite Ma Jung, founder and president of the Institute of Finance and Sustainability, to deliver this recording. Thank you.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by thanking ADB for inviting me to join this Asia Clean Energy Forum. My apology for not being able to attend in person. In this short video, I'd like to briefly touch upon a few relevant topics. Number one, green and sustainable finance, which obviously is relevant to energy transition. Number two, how to crowd in more private capital for clean energy. And number three, transition finance, which will support the usage of renewable energy in carbon-intensive sectors. So starting with the first topic on green finance, as many of you know, green sustainable finance has grown rapidly in the last 10 years, including at least in OECD countries in China. I would say that an effective green financial system should involve at least 4 pillars. Number one, definition of green activities so that we can guide the capital flow to the right projects. And typically, in many economies, we use taxonomy to define green activities for green finance. And internationally, we have developed a common ground taxonomy, which is now being used for Chinese issuers to issue green bonds internationally using CGT as a label. The second pillar is disclosure. Initially in China, we required all the issuers of green bonds and also borrowers for green loans to disclose environmental information. And now I think the global disclosure framework is moving towards a ICSP-based framework. And the third pillar is financial products. Just use China as an example. China has now developed the largest green lending market with outstanding green loans at 30 trillion RMB, which is about 4.5 trillion US dollar. And also China has developed the largest green bond market with outstanding amount of 2.5 trillion RMB. In terms of the fourth pillar, which is incentives, in China, we have used the central bank instruments and also local government subsidies for green finance. For example, at the PBOC level, we introduced the decarbonization facility. That's a low-cost instrument that offer the project owner at a much lower cost than market rates. And the other approach is many local governments in China, they offered interest subsidies for green projects, which are consistent with the green taxonomy. And now why this green financial system and its key pillars are relevant to renewable energy? Obviously, in the taxonomy, one of the key items is renewables. For example, solar, wind, renewables, and many other types of energy-related items, including storage, grids, and so on, are specific activity that the green finance should support. And within the disclosure space, one key requirement now is to require the project owners to disclose carbon information. And such a requirement will very much be in favor of renewable. And by disclosing better carbon performance, the company is able to enjoy potentially lower funding costs from the market. And also in terms of incentives, the PBOC incentive in the form of decarbonization facility clearly targets renewables. In fact, out of the 20 items that the facility supports, the majority of them are actually for renewable energy. How to crowd in private capital for renewable investment. In fact, among many investors, the complaint is the opposite. We don't have enough bankable projects. And indeed, the potential demand for renewable is higher, but the bankable projects demand is low because a lot of these projects are not bankable in the sense that they cannot achieve the required internal rate of return that private sector investors are looking for. So we need to really do many things to enhance the bankability of these potential projects. And one area of policy focus is to offer low-cost funding facilities. We have seen guarantees, either full or partial, which can also reduce the funding costs through enhancing their risk profile. And other de-risking facilities, I think, are also important. For example, the green insurance products. The second major effort is the arrangement of long-term power purchase agreement, which can ensure the project has a satisfactory internal rate of return so that we can bring in more private capital. And the third area of effort that are needed is the capacity building on many things, including how to structure the project company so that we can make sure it has a proper credit worthiness, credit rating, and enough capital. And in some cases, we need a parent or third party to provide guarantees. And in terms of technical capability, we need to make sure that the engineering, procurement, construction, operations, and maintenance capacities are on track and reliable. And also, very importantly, it's a track record of a project team, which include the fact that they have expertise and historical success with similar projects. So in all these areas, I think technical assistance and capacity building offered by international community, including MDBs, are hugely important. And my team, which is a Beijing-based Institute of Finance and Sustainability, has launched a capacity building platform called CASI. The full name of CASI is Capacity Building Alliance of Sustainable Investment. We now have more than 50 organizations globally, either providing knowledge or providing distribution channel. And we're aiming to train 100,000 green finance specialists in the coming 7-8 years in emerging markets and developing economies. And within the topics that we're offering training, the bankability of green projects is one of the key. And the next event is in Hong Kong for the entire Asia, which will take place during the week of June 24. So I actually very much welcome ADB and your clients to join our Hong Kong capacity building event under CASI. The last topic is on transition finance. The difference between pure green finance and transition finance is that the historically defined pure green finance is largely supporting renewable energy and other projects which are close to net zero. But the green finance has not been able to provide enough support to carbon-intensive activities which need to be decarbonized. And when they go to the bank to ask for money, especially for green finance, the bank typically say, no, you're not qualified. You're not on the green taxonomy. Back in 2022, when I was still the co-chair of the G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, the group published the G20 Transition Finance Framework, which includes 5 pillars on definition of transition activities, on disclosure, on financial products, on incentive, and on just transition. And I think many economies are now applying the G20 framework to their local practice. In fact, a few days ago, we had a conference in China discussing transition finance experience at the local level. We already had more than 10 local governments in China publishing their transition taxonomy, and some have put in place incentives such as interest subsidies for transition projects, and some came up with the template for the transition companies to develop transition plans. And the PBOC, namely the central bank in mainland China, is also working on a nationwide transition finance framework. I hope it's going to come out very soon. Now, with that, let me stop here and thank ADB once again for the invitation, and I hope today's event is a great success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ma Jung, for your words, and again, showcasing what can be done at regulatory level to trigger greater investments in clean energy and green finance. With that, it's now my pleasure to start the panel discussion. So the panel discussion will be about the billions to trillions of dollars. I think it was the first time we heard somebody talking about trillions, but of course it was RMB. But it's really where we want to move and lead to transformational change, innovative financing. So it's my pleasure to invite the moderator of this session, Priyantha Vijayatunga, Senior Director, Energy Sector Office of ADB. And with that, I would also like to invite the panelists to join. So it's our pleasure to have here Ms. Rowena Guevara, Undersecretary for the Philippines Department of Energy. We also have Mr. Mohamed Habibur Rahman, Senior Secretary of Power Division of Ministry of Power and Energy and Mineral Resources of Bangladesh. Cindy Lim, Chief Executive Officer of Keppel Infrastructure Holdings. And Yongping Zai, Senior Advisor of Tencent. Thank you. The panel is yours, Priyantha. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me also welcome on behalf of the Energy Sector Office, which in fact coordinates this particular event and has been doing that for the last 19 years or so. And welcome to this panel discussion in particular.
Sorry to interrupt, I forgot about last but not least, Ramesh Subramaniam, Director General, Group Chief, Sectors Group, Asia Pacific. Sorry. I was just waiting for a bit more time. Sorry about that, Ramesh.
Extremely sorry about it. And obviously, without ADB, we cannot discuss this topic because we are talking about pushing our clean energy agenda with investments from billions to trillions. How can you find trillions when you don't have the development financing institutions on the panel? So thank you very much. Now, we have a line of very distinguished panelists, as you can see here, starting with Mr. Habibur Rahman, Senior Secretary, Power Division, Ministry of Power, Bangladesh, on my left. And to his left, Ms. Rowena Cristina Guerra, Under Secretary, Philippine Department of Energy. And then to her left, we have Cindy Lim, Chief Executive Officer, Keppel Infrastructure Holdings. Then we have to her left, Dr. Yongping Zai, Senior Advisor, Tencent Holdings, and he was my boss for over 7 years and my predecessor, in fact. Good to have you here, Yongping. And then, of course, Ramesh Subramaniam, Director General and Group Chief, Sectors Group, Asia and the Pacific in ADB. So you can see we have quite a diverse panel to look at financing side, the private sector, and of course the government, which eventually should lead us to net zero emissions by 2050. Let me start off with Ms. Rowena with the first question. What is the Department of Energy's perspective in bringing in more private sector financing, not only to renewable energy sector, but also supporting infrastructure like transmission and distribution? And of course, you can touch upon things like offshore wind and the issues you have and the challenges when bringing in all the, it's a long question, but I'm sure the answer can be also quite long.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the Asian Development Bank for inviting the Department of Energy of the Philippines in this very nice topic, Action Now. So for the Philippines, we are targeting 5% energy savings on oil products and electricity by 2040, 10% electric vehicle penetration by 2040, also adopting advanced and interoperable ICT for energy, resilient and climate-proof energy infrastructure, and most importantly, 50% renewable energy in the generation mix by 2040. Based on our demand, we are targeting a total of 52.8 gigawatts of renewable energy, with 27 gigawatts of solar, 16.6 gigawatts of wind, 6 gigawatts of hydro, 2.5 gigawatts of geothermal, and 360 megawatts of biomass. We have the Philippine Energy Plan, and in that we have the 4 energy transition strategies that we are pursuing, the first of which is accelerating renewable energy investments. The second is you will not have a transition without the transmission. So we're building what we call the smart and green grid, which will basically double the amount of transmission infrastructure in the country today. Third, we are targeting offshore wind as the largest renewable in our country. And to that end, we need offshore wind ports. We have a lot of ports in the Philippines, but they are not offshore wind ready. And the last strategy is the voluntary early retirement of coal power plants. We have 58 coal power plants, about 3.8 gigawatts of which are more than 20 years old. Among our 4 strategies, when we talk about the renewable energy, we are needing a total investment of 20 trillion pesos to 31 trillion pesos. Very small amounts. But we encounter a lot of challenges. You know, we awarded over 1,300 service contracts for renewable energy. That is a total of about 130 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2040. However, we have noticed that many of these developers are able to do only up to pre-development and not able to continue with the development. And we see that there is lack in financing. And as explained by the previous speaker, that there is sustainable finance taxonomy, but we need more encouragement for our local banking sector to engage in renewable energy investments. You see, we had a study funded by Rockefeller Foundation that showed that to do our energy transition, we actually have our local banks being very liquid, can actually finance 2/3 of our energy transition. But they need a leader who will help them understand the risks and rewards of investing in renewable energy. Now, the more important part of our transition is also the transmission. Currently, our transmission system is able to support about 28 gigawatts of generation. But in order to move 52.8 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2040, we have to almost double our transmission system. The investment need is almost equivalent to the cost of our transmission system today. And to that end, we are encountering a lot of problems. You know, there is permitting issues, there is the ECC requirement for environment, and so many other things on the government side. But we have been solving the government side In fact, there are 4 undersecretaries who are dealing just with figuring out how to help our National Grid Corporation of the Philippines get the right of way and get all the transmission projects in time. And this year has been very good for us because 3 major projects have been accomplished by NGCP. This is the Mindanao Visayas Interconnection Project, the Cebu Negros Panay Project, and by July 15, the Hermosa San Jose Project, all of which will help our renewable energy systems. But since we are here in Asian Development Bank, again, I go back to the investments needed to move our 1,300 energy service contracts into producing their first kilowatt hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rowena. Thank you. Let me now move to a government which is in South Asia, Bangladesh. Bangladesh may not be having a lot of renewable energy at the moment. Of course, it's a fossil fuel based and a gas-rich country. But of course, there is no other option, but we have to gradually move into renewable energy or clean energy solutions. Mr. Rahman, could you explain what the government of Bangladesh vision is to increase private sector investment, for instance, for renewable energy development in the country? Of course, you have to have facilitating role in the government. If you can cover those.
Thank you, Priyanta. First of all, I would like to thank Asian Development Bank for organizing Asian Clean Energy Forum 2024. I also would like to thank for having us, me and my team. Our Honorable Prime Minister, while she was addressing in COP 2026, she laid out the vision of the country to have 40% of our energy from renewable energy sources by 2041. Accordingly, in the Integrated Energy and Power Master Plan, we targeted to generate 40% of our energy, electricity from clean energy sources by that time, of which renewable energy alone will be 17,470 megawatt. Out of this renewable energy, solar PV, solar park and rooftop, 9,500 megawatt, wind on and offshore, 7,575 megawatt, traditional biomass, 15 megawatts, municipal solid waste, 150 megawatt, hydropower, 230 megawatts. And we also have a plan to import approximately 10,000 megawatt of clean and renewable energy from our neighboring regional countries. Though as Mr. Priyanta mentioned, our present installed capacity of renewable energy is 1,669 megawatt, 1,369 megawatt, sorry. Almost more than 80% of this energy is installed by the private sector. We already gave permission to 5,000 megawatt capacity of renewable energy, which is now being constructed mostly by the private sector. Another same amount, 5,000 megawatt, are in the process of government approval. From our experience, we found out that many of you, I'm sure, know that Bangladesh is a densely populated country, land-hungry country. Land is the problem. So the 10,000 or so solar and wind-based power plant that we are processing, the big implementation challenges of these projects are the land. The private sector, when we gave them the permission to construct the solar power plants, the first and foremost obstacle they are facing is the suitable land. So now we are planning to acquire, develop the land, and then we lease out those land through competitive bidding to the private sector. The private sector then will be able to build, own, and operate the renewable, mostly solar power projects in those land. The rooftop solar program also is developing very fast in our country. I would like to mention that the world's biggest rooftop solar power plant is implemented in one of our EPC contractor, the capacity of which is 40 megawatts, which is now in operation. And also we are trying to convert the available roofs into rooftop solar facilities. The government is trying to convert it as a movement, so that like the solar home systems, we can implement the solar rooftop systems in a massive way. Bangladesh recently formulated solar irrigation roadmap with the support of the Asian Development Bank. I would like to mention that we are now implementing a project under which we are replacing 2,000 diesel-based power, the irrigation pumps into solar irrigation pumps. So with the help of the Asian Development Bank, we already prepared a roadmap to install another 45,000 solar irrigation pumps by 2031. And by doing so, will facilitate irrigation of 400,000 hectares of land, and the beneficiary, it will benefit 1.3 million farmers, and it will help us displace diesel consumption of 300,000 tons per year. The first onshore project of the country of 60 megawatt capacity came to commercial operation last month, and a few more are in development phase. We also start offshore wind assessment with the support of a Danish company, with a target to construct 500 megawatt offshore wind projects initially and gradually to scale it up. Here I would like to also emphasize that the energy efficiency improvement is our priority sector of the government. The government of Bangladesh approves Energy Efficiency and Conservation Master Plan 2015 with a target to reduce 20% of GDP energy intensity by 2030 compared to 2013. To achieve this target, industrial energy efficiency financing program started from 2018 with the support of JICA, low-cost financing and capacity development activities. Under this initiative, already 150 million US dollar has been disbursed, and also the other development partners, the AFD, KFW, are also extend similar financial support. The market appetite for the energy efficiency related project is huge. We already have finalized the energy audit regulation, energy leveling regulation, and building energy and environmental rating systems are already in place. Support from international bodies and development partners is required for low-cost financing, capacity development, awareness rising. So there is no doubt that renewable and clean energy development and energy efficiency improvement are the key components of our sustainable development initiatives. Upfront capital investment is paramount challenges for this kind of projects, which need to be overcome. To expedite the achievement of the targets, support from international bodies, including private sector and development partners, is needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Rahman. You can see from on the part of the countries, of course, they have very ambitious energy transition plans, but it's important to find out how we can support it from the private sector side and from development financing institutions side, how this can be supported and these aspirations are fulfilled. Let me now move to Cindy, who is heading global developer, company which is a good big global developer and an asset manager. And if Cindy, if you can touch on the kind of challenges and opportunities you find in this energy transition, particularly shifting from obviously a portfolio you may have in the energy sector, maybe many of them may be fossil fuel based portfolio, and now shifting to clean energy. And what are the challenges and opportunities you think you will face as you move towards this clean energy future?
Thank you for the opportunity to share what has Keppel Infrastructure been doing in the last 3 years. I think back in 2021, we took a very decisive decision to pivot and transform the traditional business from gas to power to that of an integrated power business and a key solution provider for decarbonization and sustainability to the marketplace. So traditionally, we run a portfolio of 1.3 gigawatt of gas to power. So we have a very strong vertical in terms of developing upstream gas supply, importing it into Singapore, and then running 4 units of combined gas cycle generator. The capability that we have put us in a very good position to then pivot into that of an integrated power business. What do we mean by that? In Singapore, we are very renewable disadvantaged because Singapore is a very small footprint in terms of land mass, and it has very high energy consumption density per capita. This is because of the nature of business that we have in Singapore. The economic activities are financials, advanced manufacturing, and very industrialized with a big component of petroleum refining business. Therefore, to pivot towards low carbon or renewable is almost very challenging for Singapore. 95% of our electricity is generated from gas. So decisively, we saw the advantage of working with ASEAN member states in the region. That is why Keppel actually pioneered cross-border renewable export-import project, or called the ASEAN Power Grid. So back in end 2021, we signed a power purchase agreement with Laos, in this case, Electricity to Laos, EDL, to import 100 megawatt of hydroelectric via Laos, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore power interconnector. Never mind, it is only 100 megawatt. What I want to impress upon is the complexity of making this happen. We are importing across 4 energy regulatory framework. Very different framework, very different price point in terms of electricity. And imagine the amount of legalistic condition to follow through, the operating regime, the technical complexity, and last but not least, the alignment of interests amongst the 4 member states. So happy to report that we have continuously fluid for 1 year, and we are in the process of stepping up the collaboration amongst more ASEAN member states. And one of it is, for example, the importation of 1 gigawatt of hybrid renewable from Indochina, in this case, Laos, Cambodia, to Singapore via subsea HVDC cable, and another being a consortium of partners to import 1 gigawatt from Indonesia, rare islands, across, again, subsea cables. So this is one example of having cross-member countries, private-public partnership to enable large-scale, long-term, bankable renewable project. Another important and interesting development that we are working is in the space of hydrogen and its derivatives, in this case, green ammonia. We are happy to report that we are working with a consortium of Japanese companies in Australia, in this case, Queensland, Brisbane. We are involved in the Central Queensland Hydrogen Project. In fact, a distinguished guest speaker, Baravani San, is involved in our consortium. And that project is a landmark project. We are very proud that this consortium is one of the 6 being shortlisted for Australia Hydrogen Head Start subsidy. And when this happens, this will be one of the biggest green hydrogen development project in the world. The target is to develop 200 tons per day of green hydrogen. For domestic supply in the area of fertilizer and explosive market, but more importantly, to be synthesized into green ammonia that can be shipped and exported and then imported into Singapore and Japan to decarbonize the hard-to-abate sector. Because while renewable is competitive in terms of price and in terms of mature technology, there are hard-to-abate sector that requires round-the-clock high temperature usage. So in this case, we think ammonia is very suitable for power generation, decarbonizing a coal power plant by coal firing, and more importantly, also potentially for the heavy industry like steel and refiner. So on this note, I shall pass over to the next speaker and happy to take more questions later.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy. It's quite interesting to see the ambitious regional cooperation projects like ASEAN Power Grid, which is absolutely important when it comes to decarbonization in the region. And let me now move to Tencent, which is one of the biggest global tech companies, and to see what they are doing on their own to achieve carbon neutrality. And Yomping, great to hear from you, your carbon neutral strategy.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you. I would like to actually start with saying that I spent 21 years ADB and 19 times of ASEF, including 3 years online. But this experience made me eligible for a job in Tencent. At the age of 62, I got my first job offer in China home. So in Tencent, as Brenda mentioned, it's the largest internet company in China. So actually twice market values of that Alibaba. It's the largest, and it's actually bigger than Tesla in terms of market value. But when I joined Tencent, I still remember before I left ADB, last thing I did was energy policy, preparing energy policy. I used a lot of this knowledge from energy policy, from ADB experience to contribute to discussion of a strategy for an internet company like Tencent. And we find out that Tencent's carbon footprint is 5.8 million tons CO2 equivalent. That's about one major coal-fired power plant emission per year. It's not that big, but it's growing. I'm going to say about AI. AI will make it even bigger. So the challenge is how to bring that amount of emissions, that including scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, all 3, supply chain, whole supply chain. So our strategy is to first fix the objective. The national objective of carbon neutrality in China is 2060. And for the company, for Tencent, our objective of reaching carbon neutrality is 2030. And we do that through 3 ways. First, of course, efficiency, energy efficiency is always the starting point. Making our internet data centers, which consume, actually emit 95% of this number I mentioned earlier. So energy, internet data centers are the key, IDCs are the key. So we make these IDCs more efficient by choosing the location wisely within the mountains, making the cooling system easier. So energy efficiency is the starting point. And actually, Tencent IDCs, internet data centers, are most efficient in the world. So that's starting point. Second point, we need to develop renewable energy to supply IDCs with renewable energy. We occupied all IDCs rooftop in Tencent. Installed capacity of rooftop in Tencent is about 60 megawatt solar PV. And I was discussing yesterday with the officials from Maldives, our friends from Maldives, and the whole island has 65 megawatt of solar PV. So our rooftop, Tencent's rooftop is about that size in terms of installed capacity. So we promote renewable energy through these ways. And of course, we buy also renewable energy produced by other suppliers. This is the second way. The third way, to be honest, some companies started claiming they already achieved carbon neutrality. You can always buy carbon credit to offset. So we could have bought this, but we think that this should be last resort. If we want to buy carbon credit, why not we invest to create this carbon credit ourselves? So we launched a major initiative, what we call the Carbon X program. That's to, the first year of the Carbon X program is to promote the research and development of carbon capture, utilization, and storage. So one of the, I contributed to the survey to the survey earlier that I'm part of CCUS industry. So we support CCUS. We hope that by supporting, investing money in CCUS, eventually the carbon credits generated from this project, then we can take them as our contribution. So it's not only to satisfy our own objective of meeting carbon neutrality for the company, but also we want make contributions to the society by doing this, because the CCUS will be useful for the whole society. And I just finish this part of talk by saying that this year we'll continue this program, Carbon X program, by extending it to, last year was only in China, but this year we'll continue, but we want to make international, and we want to make it also bigger than, scope is bigger than just carbon capture storage. We do also hydrogen and long duration storage.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yongping. It's quite interesting to see what companies like Tencent is doing, and also their vision for carbon neutrality. And Yongping has been very much involved and started Energy Policy 2021 of ADB, which of course I took over and completed later on, but he did a lot of work on that. Now, of course, last but not least, DG Ramesh. Now, Ramesh, what do you think, and how can we support all these requirements in and ambitious programs in DMCs, and of course, you know, the plans in the private sector, and how can we support, particularly looking at the new structure now we have in ADB? As most of you all may know, we had a structural change in ADB, you know, operations starting from mid last year, and Ramesh heads the most important sectors group, they call it, because all different sectors come under one roof under Ramesh, and within that you have energy sector group, urban group, transport group, and so on. So he is holding one of the most important positions. Ramesh, could you elaborate on how we can support these initiatives in the countries and in the private institutions?
Thank you very much, Priyanka. It's lovely to see all of you. I don't know how many of you can beat Peter DuPont's record. 18 probably is too many, but I'm sure many of you have been to at least 10 plus of the ASFs. I'm also happy to be sitting next to Yongping. He's got money, so we are talking about billions to trillions. So in that context, Priyanka, a lot of interesting, exciting, highly encouraging things are happening in the energy sector, but across the board. I think most of you would have heard about the MDB evolution dialogue that has been taking place for the last at least about 3 years or so. Started in the G20 context a few years ago, and it's been gaining momentum. Basically, you know, MDBs have got money, but private sector has got a lot more money. So what role multilateral development institutions like the ADB, the World Bank, and the others can play in leveraging all the resources that are available so that we can achieve the billions to trillions goal that we have, or the dream that we have? Now, talking about trillions of dollars, a few years ago, we did a study, flagship infrastructure assessment, which came up with a number at that time, which was, seemed to be quite large, about $1.7 trillion of infrastructure investments across various infrastructure sectors per year. So that translated to $27 trillion leading to 2030. We thought maybe the figure was too high. But then within a year, a couple of others came with an even larger figure, put in climate adjustment, and the figure grew to more than $30 trillion. So we are definitely looking at lots of money that is needed. So the question is, how do we move from the billions that we have to mobilizing the trillions of dollars that are needed by way of investments, particularly in the energy sector? Now, energy transition, as all of you know, in fact, the experts here in the room would know better than me, is at the forefront of climate transition. Nothing happens without energy. Energy is so intricately linked. In the survey that Peter did, lots of sectors are involved here. Although we are looking at energy transition as a core area here, for instance, the hot to abate sectors that Cindy talked about, construction industry, cement, steel, iron alone will probably rank as country number 1 in terms of GHG emissions. More than 17% of the total GHG emissions that we are seeing. A challenge for us at the ADB is how much of this is in Asia and the Pacific region. As we know, Asia and Pacific region accounts for more than 50% of the GHG emissions. As President Massa mentioned in the morning, and he has said in the past, that because of this, the battle against climate change will be won or lost in the Asia and the Pacific. So how do we really position ourselves, and how do we bring all the MDB evolution, the ADB evolution that has been taking place to mobilizing resources? Now, another sector that I'll mention, given the close nexus between energy and transport, if you look at transport sector and just one subsector of that, the global maritime industry that brings shipping and logistics together, if you were to treat global maritime sector as a country, that will be country number 5 in terms of GHG emissions, accounting for more than 5% of the GHG emissions. So we have a huge role to play in energy transition that's been happening. Now, in the context of broader climate transition, when we look at ET, energy transition, we have stock as well as flow issues. So what is the current situation? What has been done so far to address GHG reductions that are needed? And what is the future? What can we bring in terms of renewable solutions? Now, both are critical in terms of addressing stock issues as well as the flow in terms of the new technology, new solutions that are required. I'm going to request Charmaine, if you can put up, I'd given a slide. I like, if that comes up, if you go to the next one, please. I like chocolate cakes a lot, but in this context, I like matcha cake a lot more. Harada-san talked about energy transition. I'm looking at David Elsinker, who's been coordinating our ETM, the Energy Transition Mechanism work. President Massa talked about it. Here we are talking about the brown bars, by the way, they symbolically represent the coal assets, or the, call it, dirty assets that we have. What is it that we need to do to address the stock issue or the stock problem in moving towards a greener future that you see on the right-hand side is very, very critical. How do we really position ourselves? Now, I do want to mention in this context that clearly, in looking at stock, and there is no compelling need in some countries to address the stock issue. Country context matters a lot. If we look at Indonesia, the Cirebon 1 case that Harada-san talked about, clearly in Indonesia, unless you retire coal, There are grid issues that will be preventing moving into more renewable solutions. So clearly that needs to be addressed. But in some of the other countries, energy security is very critical. So you do need to have the mix of sources of energy changing probably in a more gradual manner. So context matters. There's been a lot of talk about energy trilemma. We talk about energy security and reliability. Energy affordability is very critical. Energy sustainability, obviously, that's what we are talking about. Now you can expand it and make it energy quadrilemma, or you can call it pentalemma. You can bring in more dimensions into this. So in this case, what Michael Schiffer talked about, the importance of just transition is very, very critical. So how do we achieve equity as we go for transition solutions is very critical. And finally, the fifth one is the context, because we cannot have a one-size-fits-all type of solution when we are looking at energy transition. So last point I wanted to make, Priyanta, is clearly when we are looking at large-scale transition of the nature that we are seeing in Asia and the Pacific, huge potential. If we were to reduce the 50% GHG emissions that Asia and the Pacific contributes to, technology matters a lot. And investments in green hydrogen, green ammonia, and a lot of other innovative solutions that are needed in various sectors. What role can an institution like ADB play, both through our sovereign operations and our non-sovereign operations? So the new model that Priyanta talked about, it gives us a fantastic opportunity to bring together the one ADB human resources and the financial resources we have to address the challenges that the region faces. Let me pause there for the moment.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. Thanks a lot for elaborating on what we can do from our side. Let me get back to Undersecretary Rowena. I know in the Philippines you have very ambitious plans for offshore wind. And of course, you may have challenges which you have to overcome. So what are your thoughts on the development of offshore wind? And you have huge economic zones where you can really develop wind. And of course, eventually this will help decarbonization in the Southeast Asia region, as Cindy was talking about, to cross-border cooperation and so on and so forth. So what are your plans for the Philippines, and what you think are the challenges?
Thank you for that question. I mentioned a while ago that we have 1,300 service contracts totaling about 135 gigawatts. But 80 of those service contracts is offshore wind, and it accounts for 65 gigawatts. So you can imagine the interest of the country for offshore wind, simply because we just do 80 and we have half of the supply already carried forward. And for that reason, our president signed Executive Order number 21 last year to order all government agencies to facilitate the development of offshore wind. That meant looking at the processes, the fees, the procedures, and everything that is needed by an offshore wind developer to get through all the government requirements. Now, we have seen that one of the important policies that we came out with in November 2022 was that we allowed 100% foreign ownership of renewable energy. And to that end, the first 100% foreign-owned company, CIP, is investing $5 billion in 3 offshore wind projects. And there have been other companies, foreign companies, that are doing also that. So it's good for the Philippines because we're getting all of these new investments in renewable energy. And more so because these are from countries where offshore wind has been around for about 20 years already. So we are sure that when they do a project with us, they will definitely succeed. But the challenges are many. For example, our Department of Environment and Natural Resources is just coming up with the environment clearance requirements, the ECCs. And there is constant dialogue between the Department of Energy and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. For example, they came up with policies for pre-dev, for ECC, and it was so restrictive. So we had a dialogue with DNR, and one of the important things that we did for them was we showed them a video of what pre-dev looks like for offshore wind. And when they saw just, a LiDAR on a building, not offshore, they said, oh, we didn't realize that it was that simple. So the dialogue between and among government agencies is very important. The most difficult among all the government agencies that we are seeing right now is the local government unit. We have 16,000 local government units, and each one has their own policy, their own processes, their own requirements, and their own fees. And our offshore wind developer is always having problems with the different, because offshore wind projects are huge, and therefore they have to deal with more than one local government unit. And to that end, we actually go to the provinces and talk to the mayors, to the governors, to explain what offshore wind is. But we are seeing a shift in the strategy here by way of identifying what we call our front-runner offshore wind developers. There are 5 companies that are shooting for a 2028 first kilowatt-hour out. And so we said, okay, let us look at the requirements of these 5 companies, and let us map the timeline, and let us make sure that we meet each of the timeline. So for example, we know that we need an offshore wind port by 2026. And to that end, our government is going to invest in offshore wind ports next year to make sure that by 2026, the port is ready for our developers. And we also had some changes in the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines system impact study. It used to take 1.5 years to line up for the system impact study, and you wait another 60 days for them to finish. We had very good dialogue with NGCP, and now it just takes 2 months of waiting and then 60 days of processing. And we have seen, for example, one of our front runners for offshore wind. Originally, the SIS is scheduled in November. It was released last May 24. So to that end, we are trying to facilitate all of these developers to come in. But more importantly, we also have policies that will make it easy for them to invest. For example, renewable energy gets priority dispatch in the wholesale electricity spot market. We also have green energy option. And we have green energy auction. So this year we'll have 2. One is green energy auction for geothermal, run-of-river, pump storage hydro. And we imagine that there will be participants here that will invest in pump storage hydro, which we think is very important for a lot of variable renewable energy coming in. It will help stabilize our transmission system. Then we have green energy auction 4. As I mentioned, our transmission system is kind of fragile when it comes to variable renewable energy. So for the 4th green energy auction, we are requiring renewable energy plus energy storage system. And we're auctioning 8,200 megawatts this year. And then next year, we will auction for offshore wind, because the developers told us, if we want the first kilowatt hour by 2028, we have to know that there's offtake by 2025 so that they will get financial closure. So these are the exciting times for offshore wind in the Philippines.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Undersecretary Rowena. This is great to see the progress as we move on, and which is very, very important for our energy transition. Let me go to Cindy. Can you please, tell us what are the best bets for the next 5 years when it comes to, clean energy, investments and development, as far as you can see?
Energy infrastructure is a play that requires very long-term commitment and conviction, because the purpose and the vision of energy is to improve lives, living environment, and livelihood. So it must be a very thoughtful form of development, planning, and deployment of resources, including capital, talent, and partnership. So when I look at the region, I'm very encouraged by the development in Asia. And of course, we know Asia is not homogeneous. We have Asia, especially Southeast Asia and East Asia, in a very different state of development. Last week, I was in India. I'm very encouraged by the breakneck speed that development and investment and rollout is happening in India. For example, I hear when they apply for a transmission grid, like what Undersecretary was talking about, transmission grid is a very critical enabler for renewable adoption. And in India, from the point of application to the point of planning, construction, and actualization, maximum 30 months. And in some cases, it can be rolled out in 28 months. And the type of plan that they are doing in India is mega scale. So I was in Gujarat, Ahmedabad, looking at some of the projects. We are talking about 35 gigawatt solar farm. The coverage is about 52 square kilometer, 80% of the whole of Singapore. And that is the kind of ambition that India is doubling down. So the question has to be, what enables it? I think to echo Undersecretary's earlier point, is a whole of government, whole of system, whole of ecosystem approach, which is where are the bottleneck? Instead of sitting at the table debating what is the type of technology or pathway, focus on the critical path, the bottleneck. And many a times the bottleneck is in the permitting, is in the regulatory framework, and then of course later on financing. I'm also very encouraged in with what is happening in Southeast Asia. There are some bright spot states in Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. Again, the regulatory framework is undergoing reform, and we see a lot of insurgents mindset, not just in the policy maker, but also private sector participation. And I think that is the key. Most importantly is the demographics. I think pay attention to countries with very high demographics dividends, because this is where you have talent with the ambition and the innovative approach towards a partnership system. When it comes to large-scale energy transition, you can't do it in one organization or you can't do it in a single country. It is always a value chain, end-to-end, upstream, midstream, downstream, private, public partnership, and more importantly, collaborative approach towards cross-country investment and trade. So I think that is a comprehensive answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Cindy. That's quite interesting. Of course, you have to, when it comes to transmission distribution system, you have to overcome other safeguard issues also. I know getting right of way is a major issue in most of the countries, and these are things what we need to overcome. Going to Yomping, it's fantastic strategy for carbon neutrality. It's all good on paper, and of course, when it comes to implementation, it's quite a challenging task sometimes. You know very well when it comes to energy policy, you know, even getting an energy policy out is not that easy, but getting it implemented, it's even more difficult sometimes in certain areas. So what are the challenges you think you will have when it comes to implementation?
My immediate challenge is seeing this time running, pressure. So in 1.5 minutes, I want to say that the biggest challenge right now for Tencent and for internet companies that by AI application, we see the growth of electricity consumption is very fast. And we will not change our objective of achieving carbon neutrality by 2030. So we have to redouble our effort in reducing consumption and also emissions. So that's a challenge. But also we see this as a great opportunity for internet companies to broaden our client base. So Tencent used to support individual consumers to see business. Now with AI application across the sectors, we see opportunity for us to move to intervene in industry sectors, in any sector, transport, agriculture, and so on. So we see this as a huge opportunity, of course, same time maintaining our objective of achieving carbon neutrality. Just to conclude saying that the overall amount of energy consumption to us will be double, will triple even. But for the whole society, by using AI, will make the whole society more efficient. It's a factor of 1 to 10. So if we consume 1 time more, but for the whole society, we will divide it by 10. So it's a worthwhile initiative. We should continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Yomping, for those insights. Today morning, when I was listening to CNN, there was this tag which says that the next, issue of economic downturn will come from AI. That's what it says. So, because job losses and so on and so forth, but of course, it may not happen the way it says. In a couple of minutes, Mr. Rahman, when it comes to Bangladesh, what can we do for you to achieve your clean energy ambitions?
Thank you. I would like to mention 3 areas where I think the international, bilateral, multilateral organizations and also private sector investors can come and join hand with us. The first area, in reply to the earlier question, I mentioned that we are working to assess our offshore wind energy. It is believed that we have more than 700 kilometers of coastal line. So it is the early initial assessment indicates that 7 to 10 gigawatts of electricity can be generated from offshore wind energy. We already working with one Danish company, and our target is initially to assess the potential and also to generate up to 500 megawatt. But as I mentioned, the potential is much higher. So other development partners, the private sector can join hand. Another area I would like to mention that we in Bangladesh, we have 1.2 millions of diesel-driven irrigation pumps. So government, with the help of the Asian Development Bank, prepared a roadmap to replace these the diesel-driven pumps to solar irrigation pumps. The master plan of replacing 45,000 diesel-driven solar pumps. So there will remain another more than 1 million. So that also is a potential area we can work together. Another area is we already prepared energy efficiency and conservation master plan. We are implementing it. So that is another important priority area of the government. Alongside the generating more and more electricity, more and more power, if we can efficiently use the power that we are generating, that also will be very critical. So that also is an area where we are working together with our development partners.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hope we will find space in those 3 areas for ADB to come in. Ramesh, one last word. You have the last word.
Thanks. Literally 35 seconds, I see. So just a couple of points. Wanted to underscore what Undersecretary said. Policy enabling environment is so critical, particularly in highly decentralized environments like Philippines, Indonesia, India, and so on. So what is it that we do to create the best possible policy, legal, regulatory, institutional, and financing environment so that all the trillions of dollars that we are talking about can come as is very, very critical. So that's something ADB has been working with the Philippines, with Bangladesh, with many other countries in the region. Second point, I wanted to, if I can request Charmaine to put up my last slide. Just wanted to you can take a photo, we will also upload it. Energy is at the interface of so many sectors. There are lots of interesting ideas and solutions that are emerging. So what is it that we can do to mobilize trillions of dollars is going to be very, very critical. Now, at the most basic level, sustainable development goals will not be met if we follow business as usual, even by 2060, leave alone 2040. So clearly on MDB's, on ADB's part, we have a moral dilemma that's kind of facing us. What is it that we can do to mobilizing more and more sources? So some of the things that we see here on the screen, we are putting in a lot of efforts, starting with deeper diagnostics and then moving forward to investments, particularly leveraging private investments. Those of you who are close to home here in ADB in Manila, we have an initiative called M4. Yusek, we will come and talk to you. It's called Make Manila More Maganda. What is it that we can do? Energy plays a very, very important role in all of these: maritime decarbonization, climate and health, and so on. So look forward to working with all of you. Look forward to having interesting discussions over the next 4 days. Lots to be done. Lots of interesting challenges are there, but we are very, very optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ramesh. That's an excellent way to end the panel discussion. Fantastic discussion. I'm sure you agree with me. And let's give a round of applause again to all the panelists. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.